Welcome to Retropol, the podcast that talks about retro video games, game series, and anything related. I'm your host Erlen, and with me we have our co-host Henry.
Always happy to be here.
And our guest, Cahonat.
Bien le bonjour and hello there, and I'm really happy to be here with you today, guys.
Hey, no problem, man. You're welcome. As you guys can hear, Cahonat does not speak Norwegian, so this is gonna be our first fully English-speaking episode. And what game... And as is tradition, the guests are the ones who get to pick the game. What have you chosen today?
Today I have chosen one of my childhood games, and that is Crash Team Racing, who was released in 1999 on the original PlayStation 1 to be precise. And basically, it is a racing game of my childhood, and I spend a lot of time with it.
Funny that you mentioned that, because I never had this game at all during my childhood. It was a game I knew about because of YouTubers like Kid Icarus, but it wasn't until I was like an adult where it was like, I want to try this game. I'm really curious. And it wasn't until like the retro game convention here in Norway that there's a copy. I'll take that. And I played it, and it was fun. I may go as far to say I think it was better than Mario Kart 64. What about you, Henry?
So I played this game at a friend's house when I was young, since he had it on the PlayStation, and I remember playing Battle Mode. Other than that, I didn't really play it all that much, but I did play the Game Boy Advance version of its sequel, Crash Nitro Kart, and I got familiar with how the gameplay mechanics work. Other than that, like with Adam, I got the game at a later date, and I have since played it on both PlayStation and it's a remake on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that's the funny thing, because we're not just going to talk about the original, but we're also going to compare it with the remake as well. I just want to clarify that for me, the one I'm familiar with is the remake on the Nintendo Switch. But yeah, essentially Crash Team Racing and Nitro Fueled, they play basically the same as Mario Kart, where most of the time it's all about trying your best to come in first place. You use items offensively, defensively, or for speed boosts. However, there are a couple gimmicks here that make Crash Team Racing stand out from Mario Kart.
Well, first of all, you have some mechanics on the game that are really different from Mario Kart. Like, for example, you have a really unique drifting mechanic. Like, you basically need to drift with one of your two jump buttons. It is LB or RB, who don't really care which one it is at first, and you need to fill up a gauge. Sorry if my English is not really good. On the bottom right of your screen, and release it at the right moment, and you can have a boost out of it. You need to do it 3 times in a row to have a really beneficial boost at the end. And you can also do some jumps to fill up your boost meter also. And basically, it's a racing game, but it's more technical than a Mario Kart game, for example.
It's also a bit more skill-based, because you don't get as many items, but you do get plenty full of Wumpa, which kind of functions like the coins in Mario Kart, where the more you have, the more speed boost you get. But the funny thing is, if you have a maximum amount of 10 Wumpas, the items you have will actually get stronger. And that's kind of interesting, honestly.
And some differences will be the amount of missiles you can fire will change from 1 to 3 missiles. You can have a protective shield that is normally green and has a time limit where it disappears after a certain amount of time, whereas the upgraded blue version last indefinitely until hit, and the TNT crate becomes a Nitro crate.
And I would say gameplay-wise, I would say take Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing, you take the best elements of both and you add your own stuff in it, and that's basically Crash Team Racing. Because essentially that's what this game feels like. Like, you took the best of Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing and basically made it into something really unique, one that's a worthy opponent to Mario Kart. However, where the game differs is you do still have the same like battle mode and time trial stuff. You also have some extra like story mode gameplay elements. You have some time trial relics that kind of combines elements from the previous Crash games, and some CTR token collecting, kind of like the silver coin challenge in Diddy Kong Racing, if you will. But here's the thing, if you play Crash Team Racing, it's a bit more rewarding since there's a lot more characters you can play as, and B, if you do complete the best times in time trials, you can actually unlock Dr. Nefarious Trophy as a playable character.
Yeah, for me, I really like how they merge the original Crash trilogy elements with the racing game, like you say about relic times and crystal and other stuff, and it feels like it is a racing game, but it's firstly and mainly a Crash Bandicoot game.
Yeah, because in Mario Kart has a lot of tracks based on Mario, but other than Bowser's Castle and let's say the Royal Raceway, which has Peach's Castle, the other tracks in Mario Kart 64 doesn't really have anything to do with other Mario levels in general. It is an ice level, but it could be from any Mario game. It has a jungle track, but it could be from any Donkey Kong Country track. So it's cool level designs, but they don't really have the uniqueness of, for example, Creepy Castle, which is based on the castle levels from the first game where you had the slippery slide ones.
Correction, Cortex Castle.
Yeah.
You also have basically levels based upon the different games, like you have Tiger Temple, for example, that is based upon the Jungle Ruin levels from Crash 2, and you even have Crash Cove, which is like the beach levels of the Crash games.
Yeah, I was about to say that you have a different environment and atmosphere throughout the races that is inspired by many tracks, Crash, level theme. Like you said, beach level, you have also sewers from Crash 2, and bunch of other stuff, and it seems more unique and more vibrant also in a way. It's not like, oh, it is a beach level, a speedway level, or anything like that. Each track have its own environment.
I fully agree with you. In terms of characters, you do start off with 8 characters that are based upon Crash 1 to 3, but the funny thing is, you can actually unlock more characters, which is something that I missed from Mario Kart 64. Diddy Kong Racing had 2, but this game has you can unlock the bosses, and you even have some other unlockable characters like Entropy, as I mentioned earlier, and even Penta Penguin through a cheat code. And though they did remember to include a lot of the characters, sadly you cannot play as the final boss of the game, which we'll get back to real soon, and characters like Nitrous Brio, Koala Kong, Komodo Mo, and Tawna. It was like, those characters were kind of important in the previous games, why are they not playable?
Yeah, my guess is time constraint, because Naughty Dog were pumping out games at a back-breaking pace. You had the first Crash Bandicoot game that released in 1996. Then you had its sequel that came out a year later. And then Crash Warped came out even sooner than that, with 10 months in between. So they had barely no time at all to make the game. So it's incredible that they even managed to make a game in such a short time span.
Especially considering that since this was their final game, they weren't allowed to work in the offices, so they had to work in the hallways. Kind of a shame, but what can you do?
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, it is really surprising at this condition that we have such a good game on the PlayStation 1. It is really remarkable.
Yeah, because the graphics is pretty nice. The character models are a bit janky, but they are at least 3D polygons, which Mario Kart did not have. And they are voice acted. And in general, the graphics have a lot of colors, lots of textures everywhere. So it's an impressive technical game for the PlayStation.
The wheels are actually pre-rendered, and I think the controls are good for what it is. I mean, it's definitely better than Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing, I can tell you that. Way more responsive. But yeah, in terms of story, we forgot to mention that. Floof, since there is a story mode, what is the game about?
So the game is about a new threat that comes to Earth, which is an alien named Nitrous Oxide. Nitrous Oxide wants to turn the planet into a parking lot and use the original inhabitants as slaves for that planet. And to make it more interesting for himself, he dares to challenge any racer on Earth. If anyone is able to beat him, he will leave them be. If not, then he will turn the planet into a new parking lot. It's up to Crash and other willing participants to try and beat Nitrous Oxide, and that's where the bosses come in. The bosses are, in general, other characters that think that they can beat Crash in order to challenge Nitrous Oxide. So they become obstacle to overcome before facing Nitrous Oxide in the end.
The funny thing is, since a lot of the Crash 3 characters like Tiny, Dingodile, Entropy and Cortex are playable, they kinda had to resort to Crash 1 and 2 villains to be the bosses. Those include Ripperoo, Papu Papu, Komodo Joe and Pinstripe Potteroo, who all talk. Well, aside from Ripperoo, he's just maniac noises.
Yeah, and while the animations is fairly simple, with them just sitting in a car and talking to you, it has decent voice acting and pose quite a challenge, especially the later bosses.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite was Pinstripe because they made him out to be more of an Italian gangster type. And I think the voice actor did a really good job capturing that. It doesn't sound like, compared to the remake where someone tries to be an Italian gangster, this guy just sounds like he is an Italian gangster.
Yeah, in French it sounds a lot differently because you don't have such accent on Pinstripe or any other characters. They just talk like normal, but it was because the condition of voice acting in France. So it is normal for a 1999 game at that time.
And before we move on to the remake, one other fun fact, which you told me, Floof, is that though the game is kind of like a combination of Mario Kart 64 and Diddy Kong Racing, it is mainly based more on Diddy Kong Racing because they used one of the tracks, Crescent Island I think, as one of the test tracks for when they started making the game.
Yeah, and it's more heavy on a story focus. The fact that you can travel around in a world map setting with optional challenges is very reminiscent of the bigger adventure focus that Diddy Kong Racing had compared to Mario Kart 64's more multiplayer and just overall racing focus, where Mario Kart 64 only focuses on Grand Prix versus a time trial.
But this Crash Sim Racing game, it adds so much more flair, which also the remake does, because just to start right off, we mentioned previously about the bosses. Well, since in the remake, however, they actually animate them and give them more proper cutscenes. Like, for example, Ripperoo, when you meet him, he's just sitting in a car laughing and acting like a maniac. In the remake, he shows up on a hill, has TNT explode around him before he jumps down on his car, starts talking to you, and then like driving to his arena like a maniac. Like, whoa. Like, seeing compare these games back to back, you can see there's a lot more flair, personality, and just more details added to the remake, like right off the bat.
Yeah, in the remaster, honestly, they put a lot of effort into the details compared to the original. Not only for the main content remastered, but also other things that they add upon that.
So before we go to delve deeper into the remake, why don't we talk a bit about when the remake came out and who developed it?
So it was released with the name Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and it came out on PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. I don't remember the precise date, but it was, I think, in June.
Summer 2019.
Yeah, summer 2019, thank you. And yeah, they released it after the Spyro remaster and Crash remaster, of course. And yeah, and it was also made by Beanox, so which was kind of surprising for me, but they did a pretty good job on this remaster, to be honest.
I agree, because like we mentioned earlier, the bosses has a lot more flair and personality, but so does the tracks and basically anything in this game. Like, the tracks have a lot more detail, there's a bit more decorations. To give an example, there's a track called Coco Park in the original, which was kind of like a easy standard track, but in the remake it has like this fairy tale flair, and also a bunch of statues of Coco. Totally not narcissistic at all.
Yeah.
You know, Crush and Cortex also have that kind of statues on their stages, so...
Yeah, okay. Here's the big thing. So, in the original you just had standard cards and a few selection of characters. In the remake, my god, the fan service here is amazing. There are so many car parts, colors, tires, and stickers. You can pick and choose on what you want to put into your vehicle. And the amount of characters you can pick as, not only do they have the characters that were not playable are now playable, but now they have implemented characters from Crash Nitro Kart, and even characters that you would not even guess would ever show up. Like, they had this thing where they released free DLC packs including newer tracks, but one of the things that surprised me the most was like seeing an obscure character like Mega Mix come into the mix. And for those who don't know, he was like the final boss of Crash XS. But it was like, oh, new track, this looks cool. Holy Mega Mix!
Yes, and they even added even more obscure characters, because they went above and beyond, adding not only Megamix, but another character that is a moose that was supposed to be a character in Crash Bash, I believe. but that was cut. But they decided no Crash character can ever be allowed to just be forgotten. So he was there. You could even play as the chicken commentator guys from Crash Tag Team Racing.
Even the trophy girls from the original Crash Team Racing, who, by the way, were just kind of there, just presenting trophies and not much. But in the remake, they not only made them playable, but they also gave them more distinct personalities. And fun fact about those trophy girls, they're actually named after women who were very important for the Crash Bandicoot games.
Yeah, I think it was a neat touch.
Like, to give an example, one of them called Megumi is named after Megumi, who basically helped localize Crash in Japan. So that was a nice touch.
Yeah, and fun fact, you can also play as a crate on the game, like a checkpoint crate, a nitro crate, and other kinds of crate that you can see on the Crash games. So this is really neat.
I mean, if we're gonna go like that, I mean, what's gonna be the next playable character? A chair?
No, it's going to be the top right pixel. But it's not the top right one, it is the one 3 pixels to the left of it.
That one specific pixel.
Yeah, that one pixel that Floof has always wanted to play as.
Or even a Wumpa fruit. Who knows?
Dude, I want to play as the blue gem. Come on, let me play as that.
Yeah.
I want to be flat.
I want to play as the untextured object that they have in the beta files. I don't know how you can implement that, but I want to play as that. Oh, man.
So, the remake that came out, called Nitro Fueled, added not only a bunch of new characters, it also added plenty of maps. It included all the tracks from the original game, plus a solid selection of maps from its sequel game, Crash Nitro Kart. They came out on PS2, Game Boy Advance, Xbox and GameCube. And later, they added brand new tracks that were exclusive to this remake.
And that's honestly really cool, because the tracks we got, they were kind of unique. You had like a desert track, a circus track, Halloween-esque track, a Spyro track, even a full-on Christmas-themed track, which I've talked about in a previous Retropol, like Christmas special.
Yeah, the only tracks that are missing is the one from Tag Team Racing, which could be weird, but I think I got a reason for that. It's because basically in the game, to be short, in the game you have it's in a theme park, and you have different areas to explore. A pirate theme, a prehistoric one also, but those tracks in it, like for example the pirate area, you have only 3 tracks, but it's all based on the pirate theme, so they have their essence, but it's not really unique. But maybe they could, if they able to bring them someday or another, I don't know, maybe put each one of the tracks each track together, like lap 1 you have the first track, lap 2 the second one, and so on.
Yeah, I kind of like how they did that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That could have worked. One missed opportunity is that, you know how Story Mode follows Crash Team Racing? It would have been cool if there was a New Game Plus and it follows the Crash Nitro Kart storyline. Because I just think it's kind of weird when you see all these like Nitro Kart characters, which at first, since I hadn't played Nitro Kart, I was like, who are these people? Nash, Zem, Emperor Vilo the 27th? Like, who are all these characters? But then it's like, oh, it's from that game. Well, that would have been kind of cool. I mean, driving against Emperor Vilo the 27th, wouldn't that have been something?
Yeah, but I mean, the game had more cutscenes, even more pre-rendered stuff. So it would have taken more time to develop second story mode. And I think Beanox, if I'm not correct, they did not include every single track from the Crash Nitro Kart into this game. So it would have been adding even more maps to have it in, and that the Nitro Kart content was seen as a bonus content to the original remake.
But yeah, and with that we're gonna move on to a section that we like to call the tracks, because one thing that me and Floof always love doing is that to showcase some of the like we have done with Mario Kart and Mario Party, games like that, where it's like we talk about some of the tracks or boards or mini games to showcase basically what the game has to offer, or what tracks we like, don't like, etc. And I thought me, Cahonat, and Henry could talk about some of the tracks. We have chosen 4 each, and the order we're going to talk about them in is we're going to do it alphabetically. So we'll start with Cahonat, then me, and then Henry. But for the 3 final tracks, we'll switch up the order, so then it'll be Cahonat last. Thus, he'll be the one who starts and ends this segment. So yeah, Cahonat, the scene is yours.
And yeah, so we're gonna start with Tiny Arena for my first pick. For various reasons. First of all, it's one of my favorite tracks on the game. Mainly because I like the aesthetic of the track, like a stadium field in a way. And I also love how it is designed, with jumps that you can pull out and also some drift. It is really interesting to get through if you want to know the mechanics and try to get good at it. More like a practice track, let's just say like this. And also, Tiny is one of my favorite characters on the Crash Bandicoot franchise. Not the most favorite, but one of them, surely.
I can see what you mean. I mean, it's kind of like the Wario Stadium of this game. But if we compare it to each other, I'd say Tiny Arena is a bit more enjoyable to drive on. It's definitely not as long and tedious as, say, Wario Stadium. But the music for me is kind of lacking. And because when you think arena, you would think like heavy metal, like action-filled sound. But the soundtrack is a bit more, I don't know, synth maybe?
Yeah, it's more reminiscent of the Tiny boss battle theme from the third game. They use a lot of the same sound fonts. So it is, it feels more Romany in a way. But so while you get this Roman-esque feel, it doesn't really fit this dirt track heavy metal fire map.
Yeah.
Per se.
I just think it's honestly just one of the more boring sounds of the game. It's one of those I can't really remember, because it's like you have like that do 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 do, but it doesn't like build up any intensity, or it's not action filled. It's more like that same tone, just like with Peach Gardens before Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where it's like it kind of gets boring after a while. Next up, we have one of the few snow tracks from Crash Team Racing, and that is Blizzard Bluff. Blizzard Bluff is like the snow track where you drive around a canyon area. There is some ice ponds here and there, some a cabin you have to drive through, and there's a boulder you need to watch out for so you don't like crash into it while driving past it. And one thing I'd like to mention when it comes to old and new is that although I like the track designs of the original, I honestly have to say when it comes to track design or more decorations in general, I prefer the remake. Like in the remake, they make this track look very lively. There's so much more houses, there's some trees, there's just a lot more flair when it comes to the track designs of the remake.
And it has, I would say it also has a more fitting aesthetic, as the original one is basically a desert track but there's snow on top of it. We could see all types of brown desert-like rocks everywhere, whereas the remake makes it look more like an Alp village with many houses dotted about in the mountainsides.
And that's just what makes, I think that's what makes this track for me. It's a relatively easy track, except for if you go for the shortcut on it, because that one is a pain to get through. But I'd say the worst part about this track is that the boulder that rolls back and forth, I swear for the life of me, no matter how many times I play this track, I can never time driving past it, because it always seems to like drive by and crush me as I'm passing. No matter what angle, no matter how fast I'm going, I always end up getting squashed by the boulder.
Yeah, you basically need to pass with the right speed and the right angle. Basically, like keeping your boost and drift at the right moment. It is really rewarding at sometimes if you manage to use those techniques wisely and in a good way. And you can also make the shortcut with the right speed also.
And to make it a bit clear for future reference is that when I talk about the tracks from here on out, I'm just gonna say I prefer the remakes, mainly because of their design, decorations, and how much more personality and flair they give them to them. But yeah, let's continue.
The next track on the list is Cocoa Park. And Cocoa Park is, in my opinion, the most beginner-friendly map in the game. It feels a lot like Luigi's Raceway from Mario Kart 64. But the aesthetic is much more colorful, with you being in a grassy flower field, with trees on the side, a few small bumps here and there that you can jump off to get a few boost, a few simple placements of speed boost, before you also enter into a tunnel that twists and bends a little, before you come out into a few large, easy to maneuver corners, before you then end up into the end zone again. In the remake, they add even more flair in some few major Coco statues that were not really present in the original game.
I'd say one thing that is a bit weird about this track is that since this is like the easiest track in the game, it's like in terms of story mode and track selection, why wasn't this the first track in the game? Like, it is stupid easy.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand if the developers wanted Crash Cove to be the first map in the game, and I could accept that. But this is so simple, so intuitive, and such a good map to just get to grips with how the game works, that I still am a bit confused why this wasn't the first track in the game.
Beats me. But one thing I will give this track is the music. My god, it is catchy, but in a good way. It's like, no joke. There was this one time I studied, I listened to this track on loop for like an hour or so. I never got tired of it. It is that repetitive and cool, but in a good way.
Yeah, and it's also one of the tracks I remember very well.
Yeah, it's like you can put it on a playlist and play it when you're working or something like this.
But by that I mean the original. I think the remake is good in its own right, but I honestly prefer the original music when it comes to old versus new. And then we move on to the next one.
And that is also a tiny track, but this one is Tiny Temple. And for this reason, I also like the aesthetic of the temple, and also the way the track is designed to be fast on it. Like there is some corners that you need to take with drift. You have some jumps. and then you can build up your speed, but once you're at the end of a track, you have a huge blue flame boost at the end, and fun fact is you can keep it for the whole race, and it is clearly amazing and so satisfying also to keep that boost and be really fast on this track. And it's not that hard to drive through because it is kind of forgiving at some times, especially on the beginning of a track.
I'd say track design wise, I like playing on it, but the music in this track, for the life of me, I can't remember it. It's probably the most forgettable song in the entire game.
While this is a fairly straightforward map, it has a few branching paths, a few shortcuts, and a few hazards. Primarily being those fire-breathing golem heads that appear throughout the Crash series. So you have to avoid those, and there are a few risk and reward branching paths that can give you more speed boost if you're daring enough to take the riskier path.
But what do you think about the music on this track, Henry?
I don't remember it either. It's like you said, I have no recollection. I looked up a video on it while we were discussing it earlier, and I have completely forgotten it by the time we are recording this episode.
For me, it's like one of those tracks you like hear when you know when you're in the car, you're about to fall asleep and this like plays, and like as you fall asleep the music kind of fades into the background. That's kind of what this song is like.
I hope you're not the one driving.
Oh, what are you talking about? What did I miss?
The next track.
Oh, right. It is. This is actually a track from Crash Nitro Kart, and it is called Thunderstruck. Oh, wait, sorry. I meant to say Thunderstruck!
Hey.
The big question is, does this track play AC/DC's Thunderstruck?
I wish it did, but no.
Shame! Missed opportunity! If you name a track after a song, you need to have that song play.
Yeah, but maybe it wasn't the case because some legal issues with the music owners.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking around. But yeah, okay. So Thunderstruck is a very like curvy, tricky road, and there's like all these spiky decorations, thorns, and tons of electricity chains that decorates the entire track. There's also some statues with hammers that smash down as you drive by them. And all I can say is, this is a tricky track, don't get me wrong. Like first time playing, it can be very hard and challenging to drive on it, but the more you play this and the more you learn how to drift, when to drift, and how to drive on this is a really satisfying track to drive on.
Yeah, no joke about it. No doubt about it. It also has a very cool gothic aesthetic, mixing a goth castle-like setting with damp, rainy, thunderous weather, and there being 1930s heavy machinery with lightning and other things in the background.
It's honestly a really atmospheric track. Like, whenever I think about this track, I think about the colors teal and green. It's just one of those cool aesthetically... It's one of those cool aesthetically themed tracks.
Yeah, for me the track... well, the name really represents the track itself. Like Thunderstruck. Sorry, I'm gonna try it. Thunderstruck! It's a shame that in France we don't have that reference. It's just called Thunder. It is really a missed opportunity there.
So the next track on the list is Sewer Speedway. And Sewer Speedway is a track that is heavily inspired by the sewer tracks found in Crash Bandicoot 2. You then drive around inside of a sewage system, where you can drive through various different branching paths within the pipes before you branch out into a larger underground area with a large half pipe that you traverse around in a long, almost half circle, where you will find large pipes that will wander back and forth and can flatten you if you are unlucky enough to hit its path. You can also jump on and off the half pipe to get boost when you land. This is often used to get to the super shortcut that skips the big half circle that you normally have to drive around. It is tricky to get aligned to make the shortcut, but if you manage to do it, then you save at least 5 to 6 seconds, I would say. Probably even closer to 10.
Yeah, but in return, that shortcut is really difficult to get right. Like, if your angle or speed is just a tiny bit off, you're not making that shortcut. To give everyone like an idea of what it's like, you know that shortcut in Koopa Troopa Beach with like the ramp? Imagine that, but the cave entrance is a bit higher up, and you need to time both the jump and the mushroom perfectly. That's what that shortcut is like.
Yeah, for me, it's like when you're playing the game casually, all those tracks have no issue at all. It is fine. But if you want to get good at the game and want to take some shortcuts, the game wants you to be good at it, and it is rewarding at some point with some boosts and shortcuts that you can manage to get and finish tracks even faster.
And yeah, that's the thing, because a lot of these tracks are easy, but like you said, if you want to get good, you really have to learn those shortcuts, because otherwise you're not gonna do well online, that's for sure. I will say though, one thing I find funny is that this is a sewer level, right? But the water is like turquoise. It's like, okay, this is like the most chlorine infested sewer I've ever seen. Like, did you know about this, Cahonat?
I didn't mind it, but now that you mentioned it, yeah, it is really weird that some people race through a sewer like that.
You'd expect the water to be like dirt brown, but this is like crystal clear turquoise. I guess they must have...
I mean, it looks better than poopy brown.
Yeah.
I agree. Next up, it is you again, Cahonat.
Yeah, and this time with Electron Avenue, my most favorite tracks of all, honestly. With a really good environment to it, a cyber futuristic theme. And it is also really great because you start with a boost pad that allow you to jump as well, and you get a blue flame boost out of it, and you can basically do the whole track with it. You just need to keep that boost, and it is so satisfying to get some shortcuts or even make some drift to keep your boost up and running. And honestly, also, this track is really beautiful.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there, Cahnoat, because if I was to explain someone like, oh, what does the 80s look like, and their sci-fi movies, like, play this track. There's so much pink and blue and like the 80s sun in the background, and it's just like the 80s, but with the neon and cyber technology. Like, that's how I would describe this track.
Yeah, it's really cool with all of the skyscrapers, nighttime sky. It just looks so futuristic, but it has that retro 80s appeal to it.
And there's also these like speed boost shortcuts, ramps, sorry. that you gotta learn the timing on these, because there will occasionally be these like electric fences that show up either above or below the ramps, and timing those is really tricky, especially like if you're in an intense race against good opponents and you're trying to basically catch up to them, but then suddenly you drive in the air and you see the electric fence like powers up and it's like, oh.
Yeah, it feels like whatever I do, I will hit them. And during a race, I will hit 90% of them. Every single time.
Really?
Yeah, because it's so hard to predict.
Oh man, I pity you, I pity you, Henry. And now we move on to some of the DLC tracks, because like mentioned earlier, this game had some exclusive tracks implemented, and they all had different themes. But if there's one I have to talk about aside from Gingerbread Joyride, it is Twilight Tour. Essentially, this is a splitted track. One part is like the night sky, but it's ancient Egypt, based upon the stages from Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. But it's not only that, because when you drive through a pyramid themed after Cortex, you end up in like a Arabian themed area, but with the daytime sky. How there can be two different times at the same time, I don't know. Do you know, Henry?
No, I don't know why that happens.
But anyway, you drive through like a Arabian themed city center, but with some markets here and there, and then you drive back to the ancient Egypt area. The track itself is fine to race on, there isn't too much to say, it's a relatively easy track. But the music in this track, oh my god, it's awesome! It is so catchy, so full of life and energy, it's like, oh my god, I can listen to this song for eternity, it is that good.
Yeah, it's really catchy, and I am impressed by how well they managed to pull off the day and night cycle. Because even though it's kind of jarring that you have both day and night at the same time in the track, it all blends very well together.
But of course, I'm not the only one who picked the DLC track, because Henry picked one as well.
Yes. And that is Koala Carnival. And do you know that the Koala Kong is pretty much a strong man? He's strong, he throws things and stuff. So why not design something that would fit him very well, which is a circus?
Yeah.
So you drive inside of a massive circus tent filled with all the things that you could see in a circus show. That being cannons that fires things, they have fire, they have rings you can jump around or jump through. And they even have fireworks. So it's just a fantastic amalgamation of everything that is cool about the circus, plus it being extremely chaotic and cramped. But you still have lots of spaces on the road. It is very simple, with it being basically a egg-shaped design on the map. But it's just a simple map, it is easy to learn. But the fact is, even when it is so simple as it is, it will be heavy competition in the front, which makes for very even races where even the smallest things can be the difference between victory or defeat.
Yeah. I mean, this is an aesthetically cool track to drive on as well. I especially love that tunnel section that kind of changes the music as you drive through it. It's kind of like, I would describe this track as a combination of Music Park from Mario Kart 7 with...
yeah, Wario Stadium from DS would be a good mix.
Yeah, basically a combination of those two. Because, my god, this track has like a lot of things going on. There's like balloons everywhere, the audience has like these neon sticks, there's even a dragon-themed roller coaster in the background driving by as you like race through the track. Like, honestly, like, if this was a show in real life, I'd actually go see it. What about you guys?
Probably not because of the fire hazards, but other than that, probably.
Yeah, personally, I'm not used to watch some circus show, but I think I can make an exception for this.
And with that, we are now going to change up the order, because since Cahonat and Floof picked tracks that fit very well as like final tracks, I'm going to go first now. So my final track for now is Engine Labs. And in case people don't remember, Engine is the assistant of Dr. Cortex. So essentially his track is a laboratory factory themed track where you drive through all these like 90-degree angled swings and corners, and then you drive through this like electric tunnel that gives you a speed boost, and then you drive through all these areas that has like toxic waste, radioactive goo like pouring out on the side of the track, and then you have to dodge like toxic waste barrels before you finally loop back to the starting area. How none of these races suffer from cancer after the race is over is beyond me. I mean, cartoon logic?
Yes. And I must say that the challenge of this map is to be able to maneuver this 90-degree corners that you find. Because some of the corners have places where you can jump to cut off the corners as much as you can. Other places you can fall off the track if you are unlucky with that. So it's all about timing these corners to get to save as much time as you can.
Yeah, and basically on those kind of turns, you can jump sometimes to skip in a way those turns and keep your speed in some way. There's also some pretty intense jump also to do on this track, but yeah, I can understand why this track is on the last round of tracks on the on CTR basically, because yeah, you can clearly see that the difficulty here is rising up.
Yeah, it's not an easy map, and it requires more practice than many of the other ones.
Yeah, but there's one thing it has, and that is a really good music to it. Like, this is one of the catchiest songs, and one of the best in my opinion in the game. Like, whether it be original and or remake, like, this song is a banger.
Yeah, I agree with that one. The next track is the Rainbow Road of this game. Or at least what I like to call the Rainbow Road of this game. Which is Hot Air Skyway. Which is a map designed around the Pinstripe Potteroo. Although him owning several blimps is kind of odd, given that there are no real references to him owning lots of airship and a floating track in the sky made of fabric. It is nonetheless a very challenging map where you can easily fall off, similar to many Rainbow Road tracks from Mario Kart, which is why I like to compare the two.
I'd say aesthetically this track has like two different feelings. If you play the original, it's just kind of blimps in the sky with like the track being carried by them. But in the remake, not only is it that, but there's also like casino aesthetics implemented. Then again, why would you go to a casino up in the sky?
Yeah, that's true. So I have a few mixed feelings when it comes to the remake compared to the original. And even though the original doesn't have that much detail, given that it's a PlayStation 1 game, it is very clean looking. It has all the necessary things it needs. The fabric is nice enough. You can see where you're going. And that's just fine by me. The remake adds a lot of clouds that obscures the vision. A lot of the details detract from the general feeling of just flying up in the sky. So it just kind of removed the thing about, oh, you're in the sky, cool. With, oh, there's so much thing here. You don't really get to really appreciate the feeling that you're driving up in the sky.
Yeah, for me it is really weird that... well, my question about this is how this track is holding up in the sky. Like, with all of those design and machinery and casino theme, like, how does it work, honestly? If you think about it, it is... I know it is like a gambling theme, but I think the price there will be really high to participate.
I think about the travel like, hey dude, shall we go to the casino? Oh sure, do remember to pack in some extra oxygen, because since it's high up in the sky, who knows how much oxygen there will be. Also, there might be a lot of wind, so we may or may not be there for very long, but I mean...
Yeah, and don't forget your parachute.
Yeah. Also, we need to order a blimp, because airplanes and helicopters can't fly up there, and they can't land properly because reasons.
So this is one of the few tracks where I prefer the original, because I feel like the remake adds too many things that detract from the magic of the original. It makes it more cluttered and less easy to spot how the map is going to continue.
I'd say this is a fun track to like get good on. Like, once you master this track, it's really satisfying to play, especially pulling off the shortcuts. But I'd say music-wise, the music is kind of in my opinion. Not bad necessarily, just not my cup of tea. Because when you think about the sky, what do you guys imagine? Like, I would imagine something more epic, grand, like really make you feel like, whoa, we're in the sky!
No, this is just Rainbow Ride from Mario Kart 64, almost. Where it's just, oh, this wacky, cartoony music.
Yeah. Although I will say, there is a heavy metal remix of this track. There will be a link to that in the description. But my god, that remix makes this, like, I wish they had implemented something like that, because it would have made the track seem so much more epic and grand than what it is. But that's just my opinion. And with that, we are on to the final track. And in case people thought it would be Oxide Station, no, it isn't. Because Cahonat is going to talk about...
Hyper Spaceway, which is also a final track, but not from Team Racing, but from Nitro Kart. And this one, yeah, it is the final track. And for me, it's like a really good mix of all the mechanics that you can master on the game, like drifting, jumping, manage your boost, and all the stuff like that, to basically winning the race. It's not like just being quick, but just winning the race. It's not essential, but you do really need to at least know what you're doing on this race. Like some shortcuts that are really tight, but if you have the right speed, the right angle, and jump at the right moment, you can pull it out. And some other, like the final part of the track where you need to be precise on your drifting to not lose your boost. So it is hard, but it is really satisfying once you get the hang of it.
It's also a track with a lot of sections, like each having their own unique part and skill set to it. Like, this is a track that is not necessarily difficult to master, but if you want to get the best times and especially learn the shortcuts, be prepared, like you are going to fail many times before you master this track like completely.
Yeah. And I think it was kind of cool how they had the portal mechanic, where you jump from one scenery to another scenery. I felt that was kind of a cool way to showcase the final boss, just traveling through the many worlds around in the game.
It honestly makes me wish that we did have a new game plus for the game. Like, can you imagine driving this track against Emperor Vilo the 27th?
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved that to be in the game.
Yeah, like a new game plus, for example, like a new campaign that can be added upon the original one with tracks, bosses, relics, and other stuff.
But it's honestly a really cool track, plus the music in it is really fitting for like a, oh, this is the final track of the game sort of feeling. And yeah, that is the end of the tracks, and a couple things to mention. We've already mentioned music here and there. I'd say Crash, both the original and remake of Crash Team Racing and Nitro Fueled, is that there's a lot of songs I like, some songs that are, you know, I don't mind to listen to, and others that are just not necessarily bad, but just more like you kind of forget that they exist. It's like, oh, that was the song. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I like the good tracks. I really love. There's some tracks I don't remember at all, but in overall feeling, it has a unique flair that is different from Mario Kart. But Mario Kart has overall better music in general.
I can agree to that.
However, I will say that Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled has some really cool, unique maps that you're not going to find in Mario Kart.
Yeah. I mean, like we have talked about earlier, you and me, Henry, is that Gingerbread Joyride is like the most Christmassy racing track that has ever been implemented. Like, is there anything more Christmassy than that?
Yeah, even Mario Kart's own Christmas track doesn't manage to beat it.
But yeah, in terms of so those are the things we like, I guess you could say, about the game. In terms of the things that are not as good, I'd say it's very subjective, because there are always going to be those tracks or songs you don't like as much as others. It's like for example, I can tell you, like, Barren Ruins is like one of those tracks I'm like, oh, I don't want to drive on this. But if it's more like, ooh, Polar Pass. But of course there's one big thing to mention though, Henry. Because microtransactions.
Yeah, so when the remake came out, it was a bit. People looked at the place where you could acquire Wampa coins for just playing online and playing offline and stuff. And you could spend it there to unlock characters, to unlock skins, different car parts, and whatnot. And people looked at it and said, this looks very suspicious. It looks like they might be able to implement microtransactions where you can pay to obtain more Wampa coins. And people were a bit concerned about it, because when the game came out, it didn't have that feature yet. So it just said, oh, this game has no microtransactions. You're paying for the full game and you don't need to spend any more cash on this game. And while it's true that you don't need to spend any more cash on it, it was still weird because when you release a game today and it has in-game purchases, you need to advertise that this game has in-game purchases. So Activision just bypassed having that rating by implementing it just 2 and 3 weeks after the game released, which annoyed me and many other people.
Yeah, it's honestly pretty scummy if you ask me, because Yeah, I think I'm just gonna mention this right here, right now. Microtransactions, day one DLC, or loot boxes, all these kinds of things. Bad game design, mainly because of course it doesn't work on me and Floof because we are aware of these things, so we make sure to stay away from these kinds of things. But there will be, of course, these people that get addicted to this sort of thing. Like, it's almost gambling, I guess you could say, or something that is like, hey, you want this thing? Well, then you gotta pay us more if you want to get it. And I don't like that. I honestly feel like I don't really know how to describe. How would you describe it, Henry and Carl?
It just feels scummy when you know that you paid full price for this game, because it was a full-priced game, and it has so much content that it was definitely worth full price. But it just feels wrong to have to be able to pay to obtain more stuff in this complete game.
Yeah, for me, I'm not that bothered, because as long as that for only cosmetics and not like a pay-to-win mechanic, for me it is kind of fine. You're free to spend your money if you want, but I can clearly understand that it can be an addiction out of it. So, I will not dismiss that. But yeah, for example, like in CTR, Nitro Fueled, you can also, you have those microtransactions, but you can also play the game to unlock those cosmetics. And for me it is fine, because I'm really like getting good at the game and play those tracks to earn more coins and spend them on the pit shop, sorry. But yeah, I can understand that it is kind of frustrating at some point that, oh, you pay them a certain amount of money to have a game, and then if you want more, you have to pay more. It is annoying, to be frank. I couldn't agree more. But
I mean, to compare it, it would be like if you bought a book, but certain chapters are like locked off, you can't read them and you can't open them. And you basically say to someone, hey, I can't open this. Oh, it's because you have to pay us more. Then we can unlock those chapters for you.
Outside from that, though, it still has so much content that you can just play this game forever and ever. It has so many good content. You can play with friends. Online races, you can play up to 8 people at the same time on different consoles, mind you. And you can play 4-player local multiplayer, and that is not common these days for some reason. Just couch co-op 4-player multiplayer. And it works surprisingly well on even the weakest hardware, such as the Nintendo Switch.
I will say one thing, that now that you mentioned online Floof, that reminds me. Do you remember when we first played the game and the amount of Wumpa coins you would get was like completely random? Like, oh, first place, 200 coins. Now it's suddenly 300 coins. 6th place, you get 600 coins for... Now, no, it's 400. Now it's 300 for 5th. Like, what? How did they base... How much... Like, I'm so confused how they implemented the Wumpa coins. Like, what is it based off of? Is it based upon how fast you're going, items, amount of Wumpa you get, what track you picked? Like, it seemed completely random how many Wumpa coins you would get for completing a race.
Yeah, it felt completely up to the game to decide for you, so you had no control at all.
But yeah, in conclusion, I'd say the games as a whole, they are fun. Although I prefer the remake over the original, I still don't mind playing the original. But here comes the big question though. If someone were to like, which one do you prefer, Mario Kart or Crash Team Racing? My response is, why do I have to choose? Why not both? Because the thing is, Mario Kart and Crash Team Racing both have their own unique thing. Both are similar in a way, yes, but it's like with Mario Kart you get quantity and better music and whatnot, but with Crash you get more quality and more skill based, I guess you could say. And I like both of these in their own unique way. That's the thing. Like, I don't mind playing Mario Kart or Crash Team Racing, and I don't think one is superior than the other. What do you guys think?
Well, I enjoy Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel for what it is, and it is a really enjoyable kart racer. It never really managed to tip me off the Mario Kart bandwagon. So I'm probably more biased towards Mario Kart in general. But it is the best competitor to Mario Kart currently on the market. And it's definitely up there as one of the best kart racers ever made.
Yeah, for me, I pretty much agree with you, Erland. Like, basically, those two games are similar and different at the same time. But for me, I will prefer CTR over Mario Kart, just because it was from my childhood, and it's also for me how I consume games. Like, I'm really loving to be good at the game and keep getting good at it. And this skill-based game that I'm really liking, and of course I'm seeing this in CTR, so I'm liking this game a bit more, but I'm also a huge fan of Mario Kart as well.
I mean, I guess the only thing that could change my mind would be if they implemented a pinstripe pinball track. Then I'm sold. Alright, and with that, if anyone wants to, we are available on social medias. Links to them will be in description. And what about you, Cahnoat? Where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on my YouTube channel when I'm doing some videos about video games. You can also find me on Twitch when I'm streaming some games as well. And I have my own personal Discord server. For my YouTube and Twitch activity, and that's pretty much it for me.
So links will be in the description, so go check him out. And with that, the Crash Team Racing episode is over. And honestly, I had a great time, and thanks to you, Cahnoat, for joining us.
Yeah, but also thanks to you as well, and Floof also to invite me in this and be able to talk about one of my childhood games.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Anything you want to say to any potential French listeners? And with that, the episode is officially over. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate you guys coming in, and see you guys around. Bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.